Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Hollis Does Brunch. We are concluding our 3 brunch run with UPRISERS and hashtag 2020 census, talking all about why the census matters so much. It only happens once every 10 years, and this year is the year amidst all of the other things that have been happening this year. It's been quite the doozy. Some breaking news that came out over this last week is that previously they had extended the timeline to be October 31st as the last day that folks can fill out the census to be counted for the next 10 years. However, unfortunately, it has got pushed up a month. So now we have reduced the amount of time that we can make sure that all of the folks in our communities are counted. And it's actually at the end of September instead of the end of October, which is alarming and upsetting and sad. However, we can mobilize, and this is what these conversations are for, talking about why the census matters so much, why the census is really safe, and why the census needs to count everybody and needs to include everybody so that we all get the funding that we deserve and that we need in our communities. I am really elated to have the 3 guests that we have on today. They're all people that I admire to the utmost, not only because they are hilarious and they are talented, but they're also sweethearts and they are deeply invested in all of our communities being represented in a real way. And so I'm thrilled to bring them on for conversation. They're all deeply fascinating and deeply funny. So I'm excited to have them. So without much further ado, please welcome to the stage, Miss Jenny Yang, Miss Sherry Cola, and Sala Georgio. Y'all, I'm so happy to have you on. I need a little bit of levity in my life, especially because I've been like steaming mad about this census BS this week because the federal government can't test us enough. The fact that we've now been a month has been taken out of our timeline to be counted, that's impacting the next 10 years of our life, makes me mad. It rankles me. So I'm thankful
we're here for you. We're here for you.
Yes, I appreciate the support. I feel held. I feel loved. So I'd love for each of you. So if you're tuning in, thank you so much for joining us. Please give us a shout out in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you have any questions for our guests, but please, I would love for each of you to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about yourself, what you've been working on, how you're feeling on the inside, and what you're eating for brunch. So who wants to kick it off?
Jenny?
Solomon.
I'll go first.
Okay, Solomon. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Solomon Georgio. I'm a comedian. I'm a writer. I'm also your worst enemy if you want me to be. I've written for shows such as High Fidelity, Shrill, and the upcoming show Woke as well. I'm currently, right now, I am eating a spinach frittata that I've made with goat cheese on top of it as well.
Let's do
okay.
Just so you know.
Casual.
Look, let's be honest. Frittata is a fun name for a very easy thing to make. I think people are scared of it, but don't be. It's pretty much just egg cake, really.
Yes.
Love
an egg cake. I'm with it. Thank you, Solomon. Let's see, Sherry, why don't you go next? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're working on, what's popping, what you're eating.
I'm eating everything in front of me for the last 5 months. I'm Sherry Cola, your Shanghainese cutie, reporting live from West Hollywood, and I'm a comedian, a stand-up, and an actress. I'm currently on the show Good Trouble on Freeform/Hulu. My Pride and Joy, so y'all gotta watch that. And I'm eating a poke bowl because unlike Chef, Solomon, I'm not really good in the kitchen, so I throw all of my money to Postmates. This is a poke bowl from Sweet Fin, one of my favorite. That's probably my favorite poke joint, by the way. But I actually went with the tofu because the bitch is trying to chisel up. I'm sorry, I just said the B word. I just said the B word. Are we cussing on this?
Okay. No, yeah, we're fine.
But I'm just trying to chisel up. You know what I mean? Got the seaweed salad, and this is all I'm gonna eat for the rest of the week. I'm just trying to really get to my high school weight,
Oh God.
No, I'm not. Love yourself. I don't care. I don't care about looks. I clearly don't give a damn about any of it. No, I love it. I'm eating poke now. Okay, bye.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Our bodies are beautiful.
Healthy. She's keeping it healthy. Jenny, reporting live from inside of a picnic basket. Tell us more about yourself.
Why are you stepping on my line? I am
you're
reporting
right.
live. I am reporting live from inside a picnic basket. I'm Jenny Yang. I am a stand-up comedian and a TV writer. I've written for a late night talk show called Busy Tonight, and currently I'm writing on my second season of Last Man Standing, starring Tim Allen. Who knew? And I don't know, what projects am I working on? Oh, these days during the pandemic, pure inspiration. I got really obsessed with Animal Crossing, the cutest video game on Nintendo Switch and the world. And I decided to run a stand-up comedy show inside of it. So that's what I'm doing right now. It's called Comedy Crossing, comedycrossing.eventbrite.com. Come and check it out. It's free to RSVP. And then I get people to donate to me so that I can then donate that to pay the comedians and the show producers and pay for any of the Black Lives Matter related causes that are, happening that week. So that's what's happening in my life. And right now I am eating a very delicious muffalata.
Ooh, wow.
Muffalata. I'm also supplementing that with extra fresh mozzarella from Gioia Cheese, which is a really amazing wholesale mozzarella cheese factory here in Southern California. And I'm going to be chasing that with a little alfajores. It's a little Argentinian delicacy, shortbread delicacy with dulce de leche in the middle. But this one happens to be covered in chocolate. Brunch.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Brunch.
Yo,
I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it wrong.
I'm right down the block. I'm gonna come right to you, Jenny. Throw one of those out the
window. Do you want one of those alfajores? I will give it to you. I will take my camera and I'll show the handoff.
We're just going to do a mukbang for 30 minutes, right? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that's basically what this is. I have to say. Not to be appropriative of YouTube, Korean YouTubing. Well, thank you each. Each of you, thank you. I'm so hyped to have you. Yeah, muffalata. I love it. It's a strong choice in the morning. I'm loving strong Sunday. Well, it's afternoon. Yeah. We're out here.
Yeah.
Yo, I could eat a Thanksgiving dinner for breakfast. This is some Asian shit.
I finished eating what I made as we were introducing ourselves.
Yeah, the toppings, the garnish, right?
Over. Well, really quickly, I'm out here with a little steak and eggs from last night. I have to give a shout out to my dear boyfriend Jeff for making the grill moments happen. This is exactly what we ate last night for dinner, plus eggs.
Wow,
he's a keeper. He's a keeper.
That's yum.
Well, keep them. So y'all, you guys are the best. I was so hyped when all three of you were available to do this brunch with me this Sunday. And I think it's really interesting because each of you are so different in obviously like your origin story and the way that you all show up. But there's so much synchronicity and intersection with each of you finding your way from stand-up comedy to the world of television, the great wide world. And I would love to just hear from each of you a little bit more about what that journey was like. Like stand-up comedy to me is terrifying. And the idea of being like put on the spot, like to me demonstrates like a lot of bravery and a lot of kind of confidence in yourself to be able to just be up there and be on display and try to make a crowd of people who don't know you laugh. And so to that, I have so much admiration. But I'm curious, like for each of you, what drew you to the form of comedy? And yeah, how did you find your way there?
I feel like just watching stand up as a kid. I mean, I remember one special that blew the water up, whatever, was that Russell Peters one in high school. And like, he was just talking about all these Asian things as an Asian person and making fun of, I mean, it was just like, well, who is this guy? Like people are talking about things that we know and like, but it's fine because he's Asian. What's going on? You know what I mean? Watching things like that, like growing up, it just automatically influenced me to want to do the same. And I actually got my start a little later on the stage. You know, I obviously really am inspired by people like Solomon and Jenny. I remember Jenny, you know, I met her right when I like started doing stand-up. And, you know, I didn't, you know, pick up the mic officially until like a handful of years ago. But I remember like doing stand-up essentially, like I hosted the talent show in high school. You know, I did those things and, you know, we'll get into representation later, but because there was such a lack of Asians, you know, we had Margaret, who is our queen, but there really weren't any other Asian female is really doing the damn thing.
Mhm.
So you almost felt like, oh, it's impossible. You know, if I tried to pursue this, I might be wasting my time or something, you know, and the lack of representation kind of got in the way for a while, you know, but finally I'm like, you know what? I think I can do this. And truly it's a cloud nine feeling just hopping off that stage, you know? And honestly, I'm still finding my voice. You know what I mean? Like it's a journey every single time. Like, you know, things that I start talking about that I didn't before, you know, what I want to reveal to the audience, things like that. So it's definitely a great form of expression. And I'm really like, I feel lucky to be able to do it.
I do it because I can't sing. I wanted to be a musician and it didn't work out because I have no talent.
Honest.
No, I'm the same sort of storyline. I've been obsessed with stand-up since I was a kid. I'm older than Sherry because Russell Peters didn't exist back then. So, but yeah, no, I would obsessively watch comedy, and I tried to do it. I did an open mic when I was 17, and I did so bad that I didn't do it again for 8 years.
Wow.
And I went through, which was great because I went through this whole journey of trying to discover what I want to do as a performer because I wanted to perform. So I did improv. I did spoken word, which is how I met Hollis back in Seattle.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, my God. How did I not know this about you, Solomon?
Wow.
Yeah. No, you were like, what, 19 or 18?
Me, I was a child. Yeah.
Yes, you were like because she was working for a program called Youth Speaks, and they were doing a lot of like wonderful outreach programs, including spoken word. And yeah, from there, like, I think you might have booked me for my last spoken word show before I transitioned to stand-up comedy.
Wow.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes, I think you did.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Are you a man who can do both? Spit comedy, spit poetry, the versatility.
He does it all, honey.
That was 13 years ago.
That's amazing.
He does it all, honey.
A really long time ago. But Seattle, to all our
honey, he's a true verse. I mean,
I want to
know.
Hollis,
you had braces at the time too. I'm trying to remember.
Braces. Wow.
Geared up.
You were a teenager. That's a lie.
I looked like a 12-year-old walking around. My shitty fake ID.
I was 25 and I looked like a 12-year-old, so it was really
amazing. So Jenny, how did you get into comedy? What was your kind of inroads?
Yeah, I would say that the comedy was in me. I just didn't know it for most of my life because my first passion was to work in politics. I was a big student activist in college. And as one does when you want to save the world and you think you're the person to do it, I fully committed. I wasted a lot of my precious childbearing 20s in the labor movement. You know what I mean? In the organized labor movement as a true believer. And I rose up the ranks very quickly, working for a labor union. And I realized this is a good living. And I do feel like I'm contributing to something that was valuable. But I basically was like, I don't respect any of the people that I work for now. And I don't believe that this movement in this institution is moving quickly enough to accommodate the changes that I want to see, which was a lot of us. So I freaking left. I was like, man, if I don't leave this job, I'm going to make a 2-year plan. If I don't leave this job, I will have a nervous breakdown. I will punch somebody's face out. And so I signed up for an improv class. I signed up for a stand-up comedy class. I responded to what the universe had been telling me ever since I was little, which is, Jenny, you're very funny. Why do you remind me of Margaret Cho other than the fact that you have a round Chinese face? Right. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? And so that's what happened. I responded. And little do many people know, I don't really say that I used to do spoken word. I used to perform poetry though. And so I'm actually curious how many stand-up comedians, especially stand-up comedians of color, actually started out doing poetry, because I do feel like stand-up comedy was never felt like a lane that was accessible to me. Right. And so I'm actually not surprised in a way that Sullivan used to do spoken word. But that was a big part of my development. I performed so much, got used to being in front of a crowd as a performer of my poetry since college. Yeah. So, and I did it in LA. Like I was straight up around LA getting invited to like self-help graphics, to celebrate Dia de los Muertos, to like perform poetry, and like out here and there as a little poet. I know.
That's dope. I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't think I necessarily did that, but I did. Obviously, I dabble in the rapping. You know what I mean? I dabble in the freestyle. But right before I started doing stand-up, I was in radio, so I was actually like on air on 97.1 Amp Radio. Shout out Carson Daly, Old Faithful. But yeah, it's spoken word. I respect y'all, man. I mean, do we still do this?
Yes.
Yeah, big time. Oh, we giving you props.
No one said I was ever good at it. All right, I said I did it.
You're like, most people aren't that good at it.
Yo, but like comedy, honestly though, comedy is so dope because it's like so liberating when you can like bring joy to people, but also use it as a way to continue to bring people together, which is like just part of one of my purposes in life, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so to transition from politics to comedy just felt more freeing. I could be more creative, but it also didn't mean I had to leave my values behind. You know what I mean? So that's what's cool about doing this.
I think there's
I love that.
There's a sense of social responsibility sometimes, just being an other, and especially in a mainstream format of entertainment.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, the ability to use our voice, and just entertain, but also educate in a sense. You know what I mean? People see comedy as like a light thing, and it is very lighthearted. It's fun, all that stuff. But at the same time, when you're on that stage, you kind of have you can brainwash someone in a sense where like, they will walk away like laughing at something, but really learning something. And I think that's like really powerful, Yeah.
That when you delight people, they'll just, take it in. Like I knew the power of comedy when I in high school, I rewrote a Snoop Dogg rap song for a trigonometry class. Okay. Why did I do that?
Right.
Why would I do that?
Right.
Because it is delightful to talk about sine and cosine waves in rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
and rhythm.
Genius.
It's much better than the opposite of just talking about it without a hook.
Right.
So I'm curious. So each of you come from immigrant backgrounds, and actually, Solomon, you recently became a U.S. citizen.
I did.
Congratulations! I
get too excited. I regret it a little bit.
There's still time to go back, right?
Bittersweet.
Like the other day, somebody yelled, "Go back to Africa," and I realized it was me saying it to myself.
Yes.
I was like, "Oh wow,
who was that?
It's getting rough here."
Hilarious.
You're like, "Wow, I am American now."
Wow.
I am American.
It has been. This year has been popping off, and it is. Oh yeah, no, it's It's definitely like it's now my foot's cemented here, and I get to vote in my first presidential election. So yeah, I feel
perfect.
It's terrifying, but also it's nice to finally be able to voice my sort of just my vote finally, especially after all these years of paying taxes and not getting to do it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That part. Well, and that's part of the reason why we rock with the census so tough is like even for folks who can't vote, who aren't citizens, whether you're undocumented or you have a green card, and all of the traditional barriers that keep folks out from being civically heard. The census is one way that everybody can be heard, no matter what your immigration status is or what have you. But I'm curious, yeah.
No, sorry. I was just saying, because I was saying, it's in a way when you're not a citizen and you cannot vote, being counted in the census is like a way of voting.
Yes.
Sure.
Right. Of weighing in.
Yes.
And then saying I deserve to be counted, I deserve to be heard.
Yeah.
Right. History. But I'm curious, in terms of each of you coming from immigrant backgrounds, immigrant family, and then going into comedy, which I'm curious, for each of you, whether there was any tension in your family or if them kind of processing to try to understand what your path was in life when you finally.
So see, I do everything. I do a lot of things in spite of my family, so it's really hard to say if I think they were my parents were upset, but they were more upset when I came out as gay. So I think that
right. Pick your battles. Pick your battles.
They're like, comedy, that's fine. The gay thing, though.
Right. That's so
I think when I said I'm just doing comedy on top of being gay, it's like, come on, because you're just now stacking up a pancake of disaster for me.
Right. How many times do we have
pancake
to
of
come out?
deliciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm happy with the pancake.
Right. We have to come out in so many ways. But I my dad, I think low-key like resents me because he wanted to be doing this. You know what I mean? And like,
Oh wow,
really?
Not resents, he playfully resents. But he'll call me and be like, "Oh, I want to do this. I'm thinking about doing a documentary." And like he'll be at my birthday party just pitching to my friends, and I'm like, "What's happening?" So he's always been about showbiz. Like my dad, right when we came to America, like he fully absorbed pop culture and like was listening to Ricky Martin. I mean, that's another conversation. But I don't ask questions. But like I think he has always been all about like entertainment and all that stuff. My mom was more like hardworking, and not that my dad wasn't hardworking, but she just wanted to work and like support me, if you will. So she kind of just wants me to have a comfortable life, if you will. So when I started doing this, I think it kind of blew everyone's expectations. Like we had no idea this was actually going to work. You know what I mean? Because I remember telling my mom, "Hey, I'm going to like tell jokes. Like I'm going to go tell jokes." And then she's like, "Oh, she's telling jokes now." You know what I mean? Like what's happening? They didn't really take it seriously until like, I had like my own radio show. And then I suddenly booked like something legit. You know what I mean? They're like, "Oh shit. Okay. This might actually be a real path." So I think they've actually been really supportive, to be honest. I did get lucky in that regard because, they're just kind of happy to be here. I think that's the thing too. Like we're just so happy to freaking be here as immigrants that the fact that, we exceeded the expectations, like it's such a beautiful thing. Like, and that's what I really carry with me because we came to this country, like not knowing a damn thing, like feeling foreign, and like as the only child, like I just cannot settle for ordinary, like we didn't come to this country for no reason, and we have to make a mark. And I think all of us really are. So it's really dope.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
That is so nice.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, for me, like my family, they were just, I don't know. They don't really. Here's the situation. I was born in Taiwan. I came to this country when I was 5. My brothers are like 10 years older than me. I was an accident baby. So I was the most like acculturated to being American and the one to like be like a 8-year-old like translating for my parents. You know what I mean? And so I think the power dynamic, and I think a lot of immigrant kids understand this, like that power dynamic it shifts a lot of things. And so a lot of things I've had to do is to like be very independent and figure out how to like be in America myself. You know what I'm saying? Applying for colleges, everything. So I feel like because of that power imbalance as a little immigrant kid, I've been able to basically do what I want, especially because what I've done has always been kind of like not brought shame to the family, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like do well in school, get into certain whatever, and make them, do little checklists to make them feel like, right, their immigrant journey was worth it. And so the moment I like broke away and was like, I'm gonna do this for me, it was like comedy, I don't know. They were just curious. The way my mom heard it was we were at Soup Plantation, R.I.P. Soup Plantation, and your unfortunate name. It's one of the Yang family's favorite soup and salad, all you can eat buffet bar.
Amazing.
We were at Soup Plantation at lunch, and I was with my mom and dad, and I was like, "Hey, mom, dad, I quit my job, and guess what? I've started to tell jokes. That's the best way you could say it in Chinese. Tell jokes like in front of people." And then she goes, "Huh?" And then she grabs a broccoli. She grabbed a Jones broccoli madness and gave it to my dad and said, "Here." I was like, okay, wow, zero response. So I had to like hit it home. I was like, hey, so yeah, I'm taking it very seriously. I'm even taking a class. What do you think? And she just looked at me and she's like, telling jokes. Isn't that what dirty people do at like dirty bars at night?
Yes. Yes.
You're like,
I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah, but like, I'm like, Mom, you've never been to a bar. How are you going to judge? You know what I mean? So.
Oh, also, I love how they forgot what humor was all of a sudden. Because my mom did the same thing too. It's like, comedy. What is comedy? I'm like, don't even act like I just made it up.
Right.
Like, engage with me on this. I'm telling you something, right?
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out when my parents will finally realize Like, cause they know that I'm doing it and like some things are working, but like my mom still has moments where I'll say like something, you know, like, cause Sherry says the darndest things and she'll be like, you are funny. Like, you are funny. You're really a comedian. You really are a comedian. I'm like,
wait a minute.
I'm actually jealous of you now, Sherry. I wish I got that far. I haven't made my mom laugh in 38 years.
You're like, why do you think I'm a comedian now? No, I mean, I think the time that my parents finally accepted that like the choice I made to go into comedy and entertainment was like not a dumb move or something was when I finally got a stupid award from Obama.
Oh yes,
like, you know, from like leadership, Asian Pacific American leadership in arts and storytelling, and we like flew to the White House, and I got to meet Obama. It's like literally, I needed the president of the United States, okay, to say you did well, Jenny, for my parents to finally go,
wow,
all right, okay.
That's
like, I'll accept this comedy. I'll accept this comedy career.
Hilarious.
I found a shortcut, which was giving my mom money. That always.
That is very smart.
Nice.
It was like,
I'll pay you off.
How about a nice gift and money? And she's like, okay, you're doing something important.
Yeah. Totally.
I support you.
A stack of cash. Just.
I love it.
I know, like a bribe for love.
It works.
Listen, for a lot of immigrants, the money works.
Listen, it's. I think the rates are $1,000 for one hug, right?
Yeah.
The exchange. Yeah.
I know my mom loves me, but she doesn't have to like me. And in order for her to get to like me, I have to give her money, and I'm okay with that.
That makes sense.
At least you know how it all goes down. Well, maybe this is a related question. You guys let me know to the Money Talks combo. But I'm curious for each of you guys, not only are you accomplished stand-up comics, but you've also found your way into the great wide world of television as writers, as actors, as people who are representing for non-white people, which is tight. So I'm curious for each of you what that journey was like. Like, was TV always on the mind? Like when you were doing stand-up? Okay, Jenny flex, it's fine.
Wow,
that looks so good. I'm so jealous. I'm on the way.
I know.
I'm on the way.
He's through the roof right now.
Louise,
looks so sweet.
I'm salivating in more places than one. In more places than one. Shout out WAP.
You're getting a little WAP.
Shout out to the WAP music video.
Is it WAP?
I said WAP. I shouldn't have said that.
WAP. I say WAP. Just because Fetty WAP, and it's already a precedent. You know, like how
I know. I was kind of like, what does WAP stand for? And then I was like, oh, that's what it stands for.
We are people. We are people.
See, I was going with WAP because I just didn't want to associate it with the other.
Right. Okay. I guess WAP. Maybe it's a silent. Anyway. Okay. Let's. Maybe it's a.
Also, why don't we just say wet ass pussy? I don't want to waste it.
Yeah, that's true.
I want zero confusion. I want people.
Yeah.
Let's clear the air. Let's shatter the rumors. So, in terms of wait.
I'll be back. I'm gonna get water.
Right. We were talking about the pastry. I was like, how did we get here? I think TV, I'll be honest, like I'm trying to think back in terms of acting. Like I always have to think back because I'm like, why didn't I do this sooner? You know what I mean? And it's always like, because once again, I was like hosting talent shows in high school, but I was also making funny videos in high school, which is essentially acting, you know, we're like little sketches. And then I remember I was on Vine for like 2 seconds, which were essentially, you know, 6-second, you know, critically acclaimed scenes. And so I kind of like played with it, you know, and then I finally did this like random improvised character named Lil Tasty. And that kind of like went viral. She was this rapper. And it went viral that same week that I did stand up. And like, I was like, okay, let me just like dive fully into comedy, I guess, whatever. So then slowly I went to UCB. I just decided to, you know, sharpen up the chops, etc. And just, you know, with the help of some people and all that stuff, I finally landed my first gig, which is the show I Love Dick on Amazon. Shout out Joe Soloway, shout out Kevin Bacon, Catherine Hahn. And I was just there kind of as like, maybe for a day. I don't even know. You know, I didn't even know what guest star meant really at this time, to be honest with you. And this wasn't that long ago. And, you know, I'm there and I'm having the time of my life. I do my thing. I'm like, wow, like this is dope. This is the life, you know, like this is so cool. Like this is where I was meant to be. Like it felt right. You know what I mean? And then they kept asking me back and I was like, oh, wow. And then they were giving me lines. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And I was just like, you know, I went through the whole thing, of course, with like gratitude and humility. And like, I just was like, wow, this is acting. Holy crap. This is what I'm meant to do, in a sense where I was almost shocked that like at one point, all I wanted to do was be on the radio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no disrespect to radio, and I still freaking love it. But like I at one point I didn't want to show my face. Like what's happening?
Yeah.
Your cute ass face. What?
You know?
Your face should be exposed.
Right. And I feel like it kind of goes to show that you don't know what you're capable of until you're exposed to it, which is why representation, once again, is so damn important. But yeah, it feels really dope to be in you know, TV where we are not the majority. You know what I mean? And I think slowly with the three of us, with the four of us, we're just being a part of the change and progress. Hopefully we're seeing a little bit, but there's still so much work to be done. You know, we talk about representation in front of and behind the camera, which is why it's so dope that Jenny and Solomon are on shows writing, you know, in the room, because it really matters, especially if there's like an Asian character, for example. You know, Good Trouble has 2 Asian writers, which is a lot. You know what I mean? I'm like, yo, I feel like I truly am getting that perspective, that true perspective on the script, if they're in there, you know, so it's cool. But anyway, yeah, we're doing the work.
That's awesome.
Like I generally, for me, I always know I was destined for greatness. It's just impossible for me not to get there. But no, I was actually, because like that's like our first like introduction to television, was like the first like aspect of American culture we even began to understand. Like that's like because I think when we came to America, it was a blizzard in St. Louis, Missouri, and we were trapped inside for 48 hours. Wow. And we just like watched TV obsessively for the first time ever. So like we watched like the Three Stooges and I Love Lucy, and so yeah, when I actually met a white person for the first time, I was completely disappointed.
I mean, yo,
why are you funnier?
You're not as wacky as I expect you to be. But no, I've had a TV obsession for the longest time. I took a screenwriting class while I was in college as well. I always sort of just did everything possible to create the skill set to get there, but I never thought there was a roadmap for me to get there. And I think stand-up comedy was like one of the greatest benefits to being able to finally work in TV, because I got to showcase that I'm a great writer. And it's definitely, now I'm in the very like it's because I got to go into writer's room when the cultural shift started to happen.
Yep.
And specifically certain white creators taking that responsibility amongst themselves. I was very fortunate to work on Adam Ruins Everything for a season. And Adam Conover he's genuinely very much like, I want to be concerned about what representation in my writing room. Also how
shout out to Adam.
How his writers get paid out as well, making sure that his show is WGA in a network that didn't have union shows. So it's like, this is like, so he took. And then and that sort of that sort of thought was kind of the shows that I got into afterwards. And the last 2 shows specifically, it's Shrill and High Fidelity. They're both women-run rooms. They had predominantly women in the room, which I think is the most efficient way to do anything when it especially comes to creativity and writing and just like getting stories that aren't usually heard. Because men have already said plenty.
We've heard enough.
Yes.
We'll take it from here. You know?
Yeah. It's also like just to not be the only Black person in the room, or not to be the only queer person in the room. Like, and that was sort of like, I was like, between those 2 shows, I got so much of that. And it's just feels like, it's just to feel so, like, I feel like it's always weird to say that I'm lucky, because it isn't luck. It was genuine hard work. Everybody that is in that room worked their ass off to get there. But because it's such a rarity in this industry, we all like, look how lucky we are that we get to work with people that
Oh my
usually don't
goodness.
get these jobs.
Yeah, we were just like,
Yeah.
I remember Solomon and I were joking about how because we're both queer people of color, we'll just never work together.
Yeah.
Like,
You'll never be booked side by side.
yeah, and
It's like we were booked on one thing together, which is the Funny Dance Show, but we never did a show together. And I think between me and you and Jenny, we've probably only done like 2 or 3 shows over the last several years of knowing each other.
Yes.
Because
Wow.
we don't get booked at the same time because we're meeting a quota.
I know. It's so wild.
But things, hopefully we'll see some more changes soon. You know what I mean?
It's just because you guys are so powerful that if you were to both
Right.
be on the lineup, there would
It's
be
like
Supernova.
right. It's like Diet
An
Coke and
event.
Mentos. Diet Coke and Mentos. You know, it's just
Well, yeah, especially like with comedy shows, it does like it does for me. It's like it doesn't make sense that half of the comedy community is not represented in the lineup. Like if it's a mostly male-dominated lineup, I'm like, you're literally ignoring some. Like it should be an
Right.
even split. It should be a representation of all gender, of all sorts, of all times. It really.
right.
You're doing a male-dominated show. You suck. That is
Right.
what are
Like-
you fucking doing?
A comedy show should literally be a little bit of everything, you know? And
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
what's happening? But hey, we're out here.
Y'all certainly are.
Yeah, for me, like transitioning to TV was very wild, but I guess like, you know, a goal if you were to pursue comedy. I feel like a lot of people who pursue comedy, they have different goals. Some just want to like do the road forever. Some, you know, do stand-up specials. Some people want to write, a combination thereof. For me, I think it didn't occur to me that there are all these different types of ways to work in this realm until I got into it. So I started doing stand-up, but also around the time of 2013, that's when like BuzzFeed videos were popping off. You know,
you were
and-
popping off on BuzzFeed. I remember
Oh,
the first time I
and-
ever saw you. I was
Yeah.
like, Asian girls on BuzzFeed.
Exactly.
We
Literally,
got
I
one.
had only started stand-up very recently, but I committed to like being free and having time, you know, full time. Luckily, I was able to just like not have a day job. And a friend of mine happened to be a producer, one of the 4 original producer directors of BuzzFeed Video while they were transitioning from like listicles to videos, you know?
Wow.
And he was just like, hey, we have this idea. Are you willing to throw a tantrum like a toddler in the middle of you know, the whatever, you know, thoroughfare here? I was like, okay, Wednesday, let's go, you know. And it was one of their first viral videos, you know. And so,
Wow.
and from there, I was able to become a reliable collaborator with them, especially when it came to the sort of boom of YouTubers who are making content around their identity. And I feel like as someone who had been there, done that as a student activist, had been there, done that in sort of poetry realms, right? Of people of color poetry realms, where that's mostly what we talk about. It's literally the moment they were like, you and Eugene Lee Yang are going to do a video making fun of white people. I was like, sign me up. Let's go. Like, where's the Google Doc? Where's the Google Doc? Let's do this.
For this.
I was born for this. I was a child in Torrance where white people were in the minority, and all we did was make fun of each other. You know what I mean?
Oh dang! I need to go to
Lifelong
Torrance.
training.
I know, right?
for real. But like people didn't know these types of Asians existed. I'm a loud ass, round face Chinese girl, Chinese Taiwanese girl from Southern California. People didn't know that. Like Sherry and I, you know, are from the same communities, basically. This is where we come from. This is how we emerge.
The round face community.
The round face, loud ass East Asian community. We exist. You know what I'm saying?
my
But like the rest of America didn't know that. And so because of that, I was able to tour doing colleges. But then it was eventually because of Twitter, because of social media, people saw I would write viral tweets or whatever. People would know me. And then I got asked to submit a packet for to perform and write on a late night talk show on E! Starring Busy Phillips called Busy Tonight.
Yes.
And so that was my first like official TV job. Before that, it was like small bits, but that was a huge sort of transition for me. So yeah,
That's huge. So I'm curious. We're gonna move into chatting specifically about the U.S. Census, and we have Luis on the line, our your representative. But before we do, I'm curious just to wrap up this portion. I've laughed. I've gained insight. Thank you all for sharing your experiences. But I'm curious, like, if there's kind of like one closing thought to wrap this particular conversation about, like, the change that needs to happen, right? COVID has been deeply disruptive. You guys have all been adapting in your ways, whether that's doing rooms virtually or Jenny with you starting Comedy Crossing and finding ways to adapt and shift culture. I'm curious if each of you have an insight in terms of the type of shifts you would like to see happen in media, television, the realms that you all operate in as we move on into our brave, hopefully not completely destroyed new world. And yeah, just kind of what the change really looks like from your perspective that needs to happen.
Well, if I could go first, I would like to say I need all of these entertainment Hollywood people to not let the pandemic throw them off from the promises they made around diversity, because diversity is not a trend. It is our very existence. And so you all need to freaking recognize that we are still going to be here, even if you decide that we are just something that's a trend that you can't take a risk on anymore because of the pandemic. That is what I'm afraid of. And that's what I need all these Hollywood people who are here watching us at 12:40 p.m. Okay. to know we are not going anywhere. We're only getting louder and bolder is all I'm saying.
Yes. Preach. To that note, I feel like as people who are not straight white males, like I think we need to be unapologetic more than ever. I think we need to voice our worth more than ever. I think we're making a lot of noise right now, and we literally just can't stop. Like we are different people now after this pandemic. You know what I mean? Like so much has happened in the past 5 months. Like the world will not be the same, but in a good way. You know what I mean? So I think we just have to continue representing who we are, reminding the world where we came from, and just like know that we are unique. We have a perspective to provide that like a straight white guy cannot. You know what I mean? We're the shit. We're the shit.
For me, it's always going to be just take up space. Don't think you don't need to be there. That's always the rule I have. I think my confidence has benefited me a lot in this world, but that's because I know I deserve to be where I'm at. And I feel like that way for a lot of the other people that, like, especially everyone in this space too. There's so many of us that don't feel that way, and we deserve to not feel that way. You should, if you have imposter syndrome, bite right through it. Fake your ass if you have to. You didn't fake. You earned it. You did all the work, and I think that's important is to remember if you've done the work, you deserve the job. So
I hear that. Thank you. Sometimes that imposter syndrome will just creep right up on you.
Oh yeah.
You know, even though you've come so far, you're just like, oh wait, I have been inhibiting myself and compromising myself and not believing in ways, or just being like, oh, it's flukish that I'm here where I'm at right now.
Right.
So internalized and so tangled up inside.
That's why
identifying that is really important.
And also get your money. Get your goddamn money.
Yes.
Get all of it to the max.
My God.
Never take a
Every single person needs to learn that they should ask for double what they think they are.
Ask what everyone's making, and if they don't tell you, tell them that you want to make exactly as much as they do.
Or worst comes to worst, you just channel your inner Solomon.
Yes.
That's what I do. You know what I mean?
WWSD, you know?
What would Solomon do?
Well,
I love that.
He would whap.
Yes, whap it. Whap it.
Whap.
That's just it's a way of life. It's not about what happens in the sheets, you know? It's a way of life, whapping.
It's who you are.
Exactly.
It is.
I'm a wet ass pussy all day, every day.
It is a lifestyle. It is an energy.
Ready to go.
It is a philosophy. I can't.
Let's
well, that
talk about
seems
the
like
census.
the perfect way to transition into talking to an official member of the U.S. Census Bureau. So without much further ado, we'd love to bring on Louise yet again from the U.S. Census Bureau. Tell us a little bit more about the census. Louise, what's up?
Hey,
Louise?
how's it going? Okay, hold
Hey,
on.
good.
I'm showing the wrong way. There we go.
Get horizontal.
There you go.
Hey, so that was a very interesting transition. But I do want to say that was just listening to you guys is really inspirational. So I'm just really honored to be here, and thank you guys for your words. And man, you guys got me riled up, and I'm just listening. So
good.
So Louise, thanks so much for joining us. You were with us last week, telling us a little bit more about the work that you did or that you've been doing, really engaging. You're in Seattle, but you've been all over Washington State, specifically engaging with rural communities, with Latinx communities. You told a really compelling story last week about, you growing up in Eastern Washington and, the Boys and Girls Clubs just like not being funded or not being very available, and just youth programs not necessarily being very available. which you can
Right.
point to an undercount of last decade census
Right.
contributing to the lack of resources. And, you know, you brought up a really great point last week about how people just, when children don't get counted from the ages of 0 to 10, it really is there. That's a very dangerous, like,
Right.
undercount, because it means that the availability of after school resources, of preschool resources, of free and reduced lunch for students.
Right.
So you made those really compelling points. And our guests here today, we really wanted to hear more about like looking at the data from last census, from the 2010 census, and how that impacted the last 10 years that we all lived through. And so I'm curious if you could share a little bit more insight about that, and I'll solo you so you can have your little moment.
No, definitely. I think one of the biggest things right now, and I touched up on this a little bit last time, but you know, we're very interesting times right now where our voices are something that carries a lot of weight right now, and so representation is really big. And so when we talk about representation, specifically for the census, is the number of people that are counted throughout each state. Directly impacts the representation within the House of Representatives in Congress. So I think that one is a really big one because our leaders over in the Capitol are our voice for us, for each state, in order for us to be able to navigate what it is that we want to happen in our states. And so one of the biggest impacts, I had talked about Washington, but I have a couple other data points here that I could share with you guys. But Washington State gained 1 seat in the House of Representatives in 2010 based off the increased population. We have a few other ones, like Florida gained two seats in the House of Representatives. Arizona gained an extra seat. But that one, those in comparison to a few other states that lost representations. New York lost representation. So what does that really mean? It just means either people were undercounted or more people left New York since the 2000 census to the 2010 census. Ohio lost two seats in House of Representatives. Iowa lost 1 seat. And so that's specifically to the House of Representatives. And again, this is important because those representatives are our voice in Congress. And so we need them in order for them to be able to, talk through, we need to talk through them in terms of what it is, the changes that we want to see, whether it's in our states or in Congress and specifically. So that one's specifically to representatives. A few other things that were really impacted, as we talked about, there's Medicaid, SNAP, WIC, Head Start, Section 8 housing, school lunch programs, which I mentioned last time. You know, I was a recipient of school lunch programs, and that's really highly impacted by the number of people that are counted in the census. Transportation, and then one of the biggest ones, which again I was a recipient of, is student loans and Pell Grants. So student loans and Pell Grants are directly impacted based off of the census. And one last thing I did want to talk about is, I'm 30 right now. I'm aging myself, but eventually one of the biggest things that I'm working on is to try to be able to open up my own business, right? And so what a lot of people use in order to be able to open up their business is census data. They use the data from the census to be able to figure out where exactly it is they want to open a business, right? And so if you're trying to open, and let's say, what's my favorite type of food? Teriyaki is my favorite type of food, right? I need to know exactly where it is that I want to open a business. So all of that, all small business owners use census data to try to determine where it is they're going to open a business. They're not just going to open a teriyaki in maybe a neighborhood where people just don't like teriyaki, right? Or they're not going to open teriyaki in a neighborhood where there's not that many people around. And so they use specifically census data to try to determine exactly the appropriate place to be able to open up a business. So that's one of the biggest ones, especially because I feel like people my age or our generation, we're looking at becoming independent a little bit more and opening up a business. So that's one of the biggest ones there. So yeah, that's a bit of my spiel in terms of census. I don't know if there's anything other specific that you want me to go into.
I mean, I think you make a really good point in that, like, obviously we've been driving it home that, like, the census count, it impacts, as you were mentioning, our political representation, as well as the funding for our communities, and you know, the danger of communities of color, Asian communities, Black communities, Latinx communities being undercounted means we are underfunded. And like to Solomon's earlier point, like, you've been paying taxes since you've been a working person in the United States, but only now because you're a citizen you get to vote. You know, we all of our communities contribute to this country in our ways, and if when we're undercounted and when we're skeptical of participating in the census for completely reasonable reasons, like, it's totally reasonable to be skeptical of the federal government. It's completely reasonable to be suspicious that us giving us the government our data is going to be worked against us. But at the end of the day, it's like, that data is secure, and not only is that data used by the government, but we can use it too. Like, it's contributed to the point, Luis, like, if we're entrepreneurs or we want to do more effective community organizing and political organizing or labor organizing like you used to do, Jenny, like, the census actually provides data that can empower all of us to better understand ourselves. But when we're undercounted, then that data is not right, and then it makes it such that we don't even see ourselves reflected, which is the danger, I think.
Wow. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that this is all very educational and like very informational. Thank you, Luis, for that, because
of course.
I'm still learning about, you know, the effects of it, and like the whole student loans thing. That's like it should be a big reason for people to you know want to be counted for the census. So I'm definitely gonna spread the word and all that.
Well, especially with representing, like, with the House of Reps, especially, like, if you're losing, there's bills that didn't get passed that would work that needed 2 votes. So
Yeah,
completely.
no, you're right when it comes to Pell Grants. That one specifically impacted me going to college, because I don't think I would have been able to make it without Pell Grants and scholarships. So that one specifically impacted me. But one of the things we talked about, not to talk about it again, but we were talking about, like, kids, right? And so when we talk about kids, we're talking about free lunches. Like I said, I receive free lunches. We're talking about Head Start. These are all programs that our kids are going to be using, and so we got to be able to think about them, because the census happens every 10 years. So if we don't count them this 2020 census, that means they can't be counted again until 2030. That means for the next 10 years, they're just not going to be counted, right? And we're really big right now about our civic duty. We want our voices to be heard, so we need to be counted. And we talked about the Boys and Girls Club, but that, in addition, also affects any community center, right? If there's a community center, so one of the biggest ones that I ran into is I work with an organization up in North Seattle that they work with Mexican indigenous community. And so these people, they don't speak English. They speak a dialect from part of Mexico where they speak a lot of indigenous, their dialect is indigenous, right? And so there's only one community center that is able to help them. It helps them get jobs. It helps them translate documents. It helps them be able to communicate with everybody else, because they just don't understand the language, right? But they receive, all these community centers receive direct funding, whether it's for Hispanics, Blacks, or Asians. All of these community centers receive funding from the government, but the government receives it from the state, but the state receives it from the government, right? And so if we don't know there's a pocket of people like them, like, say, the indigenous people, then they can't open a community center there for them to be able to go there and receive these services, right? So it kind of adds up. It all adds up in order for people to be able to receive the supports like community centers. And so it's very interesting how there's a direct link, but sometimes we don't see it. Just like I mentioned earlier with the Boys and Girls Club, right? I never knew there was... I never knew that just the undercount of children might have been a big impact why there was no Boys and Girls Club where I grew up, right? And then I go to west side of Seattle, or west side of Washington, and there's Boys and Girls Clubs in almost every block, almost like there are Starbucks. And I'm like, man, I was out in the streets running around with my friends. I wish I had, like, mentors. I wish I had people guiding me. Because I worked for the Boys and Girls Club, so then I was able to work with kids. I saw kids go to college. I saw kids graduate from high school that probably would have never graduated, right? And I'm just like, man, I wish I had that, right? But I think a big impact of that was just the undercount, right? Where I grew up, there's a lot of migrant or immigrant kids, and so maybe they're scared. They don't want to be counted because they think the government is going to come after them, which isn't the case, right? But we just don't know that because we lack that sort of education and knowledge of why the census is important. So it's a bit of a caveat that we're trying to like bust to do in order to ensure that people are feel safe about being counted.
Yeah. I think it's really cool that there's that reassurance about the undocumented. Because like it's hard to trust the government, period. You know what I mean? And like on top of that, so it is really cool to know that you can still fill out the census without being exposed.
Yeah, for me, it's one of those things where it's like there's so many of us that they can't get us all, so just do the census.
Well, the census is protected through Title 13, and that's just a fancy way of saying that it's protected through this law that the Bureau can't give any census information to anybody, whether it's the DEA, the FBI. It protects against the Patriot Act. It protects against ICE, and so. There's even been cases in the past where federal agencies have requested information and the census shuts down. Since the census started, there's never been a breach of data or a breach of information. And so, it's a big reassurance to know that they function. Their main goal, the reason the census exists is to get an accurate count. And so try to do whatever it is that we can to navigate whether it's a political climate or whether it's any other challenges to ensure that we count everybody. That is our main goal, to count everybody, regardless of whether, there's a lot of things been going on recently about whether only citizens need to be counted, whether like people that are residents or migrants need to be counted. We're counting everybody. We need to count everybody that lives here. So it don't matter. Because everybody receives services. And that goes a little bit more into one of the things we talked about last time. We talked about schools, we talked about hospitals. If you're out hiking and somebody needs to come out and rescue you, right? Because you got hurt, right? The search and rescue is funded, right? So all of these things are funded. We don't even know, right? And
everything.
And you don't go to the hospital and they're like, well, are you a citizen? No, like you receive services, they help you, right? So those things don't matter, which is why we try to make it a big deal and say, hey, you need to be counted. It doesn't matter. And so that's why I'm here, to try to empower people, and especially the younger generation, to let them know that, we're the up and rising, or the uprisers, right? So for the next 10 years, our voice is what matters. And so we need to make sure that from us is going to come the next generation, the kids. And so we need to make sure that we're doing our part, like, again, going back to the civic duty, right? So that's what we're here for.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much, Luis. And thank you for all that work that you're doing mobilizing folks. I think that's what I've realized through this whole entire series and this campaign is that, like we know objectively, especially us, like a second generation or first generation that grew up in the United States, we're very online. We have a lot of like literacy but even then, even with all of that, just the more that I've been doing this specific series, talking to folks like you, Luis, who have been organizing, the more I realize how deeply profound the census is and how dangerous it is if we are undercounted, and the likelihood that we will be undercounted because of the political climate is truly bananas right now. And powers that be don't want to see us represented in full, in the same way that y'all in media are fighting for a space to be so that we can be recognized, and like what y'all were talking about, like we're not going anywhere, we are not a trend, like that's we are the rising tide. And like, I think we move away from the idea of considering ourselves minorities, because we truly aren't. We are the global majority, and also we're just becoming quickly the majority. Non-white people are the majority in the United States moving forward. So it's
with that being said, I just want to add one last thing. So this upcoming census, 2020 census, Hispanics are going to be 1 in 4 people counted in the census are going to be Hispanic. So we are no longer minorities, and we're talking about every single minority, right? We're no longer minorities, whether it's Black, Hispanic, white, whatever it is. Like we are the majority now, and so we need to be counted in order for us to be known to be the majority. So it's important for people to be counted.
Say that.
Should I get off my soapbox?
I love it. We love it. We love it. Thank you, Louise.
We love
you guys got me inspired. So
yeah, I think, I will say just it's kind of interesting how the stars align that in an election year and with all this stuff going on, and we know everything going on, the fight against racial injustice, the importance of representation, all these conversations are happening the year of the census, and it almost seems like we have no reason not to fill it out and be counted because and express our voice even further. So it kind of is serendipitous. Serendipitous. That word?
Sure. Yeah. We should probably just, but I think what I take away from this is we need to start talking to our friends and family to just be like, hey, by the way, did you know it doesn't matter what your status is? You just need to be counted because it'll matter.
You can watch them do it. Just go online, make them put it in themselves.
It took me 5 minutes. It took me 5 minutes. Okay, I do it fast.
Awesome. And I believe Hollis shared the link last time, my 2020 census.
Yeah, so we have it here actually with Uprisers. So it's just the census is my2020census.gov.
Yeah.
Uprisers, thank you so much for hosting us. And your information is 100% secure. Louise, thank you for assuring us and underscoring the fact that even if the feds are trying to get at our individual data, they will not succeed. Because it's really important that our data is secure and that the U.S. Census Bureau operates completely outside of these other federal agencies or local police agencies or ICE or any like that. And I think to your point, Jenny, I think that's the most important thing that I've been taking away from it is that the likelihood that we all fill out the census, that's high, right? It's about our relatives that don't speak English or our relatives or, people in our community who aren't documented or that aren't citizens. Or our friends who are parents and can barely find 15 seconds to rest, let alone log on and take the census. But their children need to be counted and they deserve to be counted. So just really thinking about in your life, where can you reach out and make sure that folks know the importance of being counted and start this ripple effect? Because really time is ticking. And again, as I said at the top, we used to have till the end of October. Now we have till the end of September. So there's still time. There's still definitely time. And people can take it on their phone and they don't have to have the thing that came in the mail. What's up?
The other way around, we have until the end of October now.
No.
Dude. No. They took a month away.
Oh, that's right.
It's shady.
No,
shady.
It's shady. No, and
sorry,
I understand that.
It didn't hit me
confusion.
fully.
No, it's okay. It's
to clarify.
I understand that confusion because they had extended it over to October, and they just recently announced this week that it's September 30th. So we still have some time, but we got to make sure that we get everybody counted. It's really important.
Yeah, and I just just to underscore again, communities of color, we are at the most risk of being undercounted. And it's, we have to make sure that we hold our own and that we encourage our own to be counted and to make sure that we're represented in full. And y'all are doing that in television and in comedy and doing an incredible job. And it's all of our civic responsibility to make sure that we're being represented for the next 10 years. Stakes high. And right below my2020census.gov is the way that we can make it work. And another plug really quickly. So for Uprisers, if you actually go to this bit.ly/census-download, there's some infographics that you can download and share that share these salient points, such as, is the census completely safe for undocumented folks? Or how, does everybody in the household need to take it? No, only one person within each household has to take it in order for everybody in the household to be counted. So you can go to that site and do the download. And then finally, you guys modeled our amazing, our filter, our Q&A filter. Also, but if you go on Instagram,
we are
look at the material. But if you go to We Are Uprisers and you go onto the page and then you can go to the little filter and then you scroll up and you see my silly little face right there. And then you click on that, and then you too can take the quiz. So you know how it is. So there it is. There it goes. I just want to thank each of you so much for taking time out of your Sunday and being present for us. Jenny and Sherry and Solomon, you guys are such a delight. I wish I could spend every Sunday with you all, but thank you for bringing levity and realness to the convo. Luis, thank you so much for your informative soapboxing and just doing the work and making sure that our communities are being counted out there. We have like less than 2 months to make sure that we're all counted. And we're all here together to make sure that we can be.
Thank you so much. Yo, and thank you, Hollis, for putting this on. We are Uprisers. Y'all, thank you for spreading the word and just raising awareness on how important the 2020 census is. So yeah, mwah, we love you.
Awesome. Sending so much love to each of you. We really appreciate you all. And thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, Lou.
All right.
Happy
Take
Sunday.
care, y'all.
Bye, y'all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Goodbye. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, aunties.
Look at that. Look at that closing graphic.
Wait, I don't think her.
Are we wrapping it up?
No, are we still?
Are we wrapping it up? Are we wrapping it up?
WAP. I've literally been saying WAP the last 2 days. Wait, but can they still hear our voices?
I mean,
yeah, I'm gonna send it now.
Oh my God.